Yeah, this is Ross Southerland. I'm up at my Uncle Slick and Diane's house. Slick wrote the song Let Old Mother Nature Have Her Way for Carl Smith, his #1 hit. And I think it knocked Hank Williams off the top of the charts there, didn't it, Slick?
Yeah.
What year was that?
That was 1951.
You did really good on that song, didn't you?
Yeah, done real good on it now. Hank in 1947, Hank Williams come out with songs that was out of this world, and everybody was really going after his songs. And then about 1949, Carl Smith left WNOX and Kaz Walker's both, and he put out, Carl Butler wrote a couple of songs for him. If Teardrops Were Pennies and Heartaches Was Gold, and Let's Live a Little, and This Orchid Means Goodbye. And so what happened, Carl Smith was #1 too. Hank Williams was #1. And those two fought for about 2 years there, maybe right on up till Hank died, with one had come out a #1 song 1 week or 2 weeks, then the other one would come out with #1 song. And when I was in the Army in Massachusetts in 1950, he had out, they had a song out that was called, trying to think the name of it, but maybe I'll think of it here just in a minute. Dear John,
Yeah.
I fetched your saddle home. And that everybody played on jukebox because all that around them army camps had a lot of people from the South. And so that's the reason why then I knew Carl, not really good at that time, but I knew where he lived at, and I had met him at Kaz Walker's one morning. I used to go there and carry musical instruments in for people, and then at the midday merry-go-round in Knoxville, I met him there, talked to him there, along with Bill, Charlie Monroe, Bill Carlisle, Cliff Carlisle, Archie Campbell. You can just name them, just keep naming them off. It used to play on the used to play on the midday merry-go-round. Tennessee Barn Dance really is what it was called. But then I wrote the song and sent it to his sister in Maynardville. And I didn't think I'd ever hear from it, but she wrote me a letter back and said that she had give it to him. And then she wrote another letter and said it was already recorded, and I would probably hear it if I was where they played country music at. And I heard it in Boston.
Oh, yeah.
First time I heard it was in Boston in a bar room.
Wow.
So that's been from 51. Oh, I'd say 51 until now is 50, 60, 61 years ago.
Yeah, they still play it on the radio. I still hear it, and it's on YouTube. I saw somebody put it on there, and that song did really good for you, didn't it?
Yeah, Carl Smith was a good man. A lot of people wrote his songs. Carl never was the type that wrote a lot of songs. Carl Butler wrote a lot of songs. Him and Pearl wrote a lot of songs for him, and I was in Happy Holler drinking beer with Carl and Pearl, and Ray Price was there, and Arthur Q. Smith was there, and I was sitting beside Arthur Q. Smith, and he said he had a song he wanted to sell Carl Butler, and I looked at it, and I told Carl, I said, it'll make a hit. Carl said, I don't believe it will. I said, I don't believe I want it. And he passed it to Pearl, and Pearl looked at it. So she said, well, ever what Carl thinks. And Ray said, let me see it. And Ray Price recorded it, and the name of it was Crazy Arms.
One of the greatest songs in country music.
I'd say that made one of the biggest hits that ever came out was Crazy Arms, and the boy that wrote Old Lonesome Me was trying to think of what his name is.
Don Gibson.
Don Gibson. Don Gibson played on Midday Merry-Go-Round too.
Yeah.
And Don put a lot of songs out, and Don's from Knoxville.
Oh yeah, didn't he write "Can't Stop Loving You" and "Oh Lonesome Me" up there at Shiloh Trailer Park area?
Shiloh Trailer Park. That's on Clinton Highway. I lived in Shiloh.
Yeah.
I lived in the same spot that Don wrote the song in. And some people say that Don's wife wrote it. I don't know. And then some people say that Don had something to do with his wife missing. And I don't know that. Never heard anything too much about it, except years ago they said that he might have had something to do with it, but I don't believe it.
Yeah, me either.
But Don Gibson was a good man. There's just a lot of them. I used to carry musical instruments in up there, and that's how I met all these guys. I get a dime, a quarter for carrying instruments in and carrying anything else in that they need to carry in. I was at Hall's Hall's Grammar School in 1941. Went to school there, and I sang a song up there on the stage one time. Moon Rising, I believe is the name of it. It was a popular song. I didn't write it, or don't know even who did. And so they was having music there that night, and Carl's Story and the Ramblin' Mountaineers, made up of Brewster Brothers at that time. They played with Carl, and his popular song was "My Lord Keeps a Record." So we was sitting there in the back of the stage, in the dressing room back there, and I was back there with him. And his wife was from Monticello, Kentucky, and she came in there, and she cussed him out and called him every kind of a name it was, and said she was leaving him. So he stood right there, sat right there and, on the guitar, and wrote the song. I stood and watched her walk away. That's a good song.
The classic. Yeah.
I could see it come out to be a big hit. That's about the time Webb Pierce come out with a lot of songs that made #1 hit. All them early guys, Johnny Orr.
West Monroe boy, wasn't he?
Huh?
Webb Pierce.
Webb Pierce, yeah, in the jailhouse now, but that didn't come out until about '59. He wrote some of them early tearjerkers that was real good songs. They still yet being recorded today. Some of his early stuff is.
Hey, Slick, tell everybody about that time you took Ralph Stanley down to Louisiana.
Oh, yeah, I had Ralph Stanley in Louisiana about 5 or 6 times, maybe 7 times. And they thought them Cajuns down there are the best people in the world. But when we started mentioning bluegrass, they thought we'd bring a bunch of horses from out of Kentucky down there and having a rodeo. But we was having a bluegrass show at the old Fireman's Hall in West Wego, Louisiana. I lived about 4 or 5 miles from there. That's just a suburb of New Orleans. That was the first time that bluegrass had ever come to New Orleans. And that's the reason why that they thought that. Now, Lester Flatt and Earl Scruggs was going to play at the Viola Fieldhouse one time back in the late 40s. But they had a hurricane down there and it scared them away. And that's the reason why that no bluegrass. And they never did have a 5-string banjo on Bourbon Street until Ralph Stanley come down there. And that made a 5-string banjo real popular.
I bet.
But I was all over the state there with Ralph. In other words, I was all the way up to in Texas. I'm trying to think of the name of that town outside of Shreveport. Up there with him at Bill Grant's had a festival up there. And then Folsom, Louisiana, Coshado, Louisiana, he played there. After he got started down there, everybody wanted him to play. And then we had the festival down there at at Homa, which was called the Cajun Country Outdoor Opera, and Ralph come there and played. Josh Graves played there with Dobro. This Carter feller from Nashville, he played there. Joe Stewart from Kaz Walker's played there. Lord, I don't know how many did play there. Carl Butler wanted to come, but I never could get a chance to bring him down there because he had plastic surgery back in the mid-40s when he had a wreck, and that plastic surgery was falling out, and he offered to come down there for $1,000 and play if we furnished him with a band. And that's the way Carl drove. That's the way Carl traveled. He didn't travel with no band. It was just him and Pearl. Roy Acuff did the same thing. He didn't travel with no band. He'd come by himself, and they had the local bands there that would play with him.
Speaking of local, you're talking about a bunch of local boys from right here where we're at. Chet Atkins, Carl Smith, Carl Story.
Carl Story was from up here at Strawberry Plains. That's where he was originally from. Now, his latter days, he played in Greer, South Carolina. Over there, he played over there in South Carolina a lot, and more so than any place else in his last days. He come to New Orleans. He didn't come to New Orleans. He come to Baton Rouge one time, and I was up there with him. He always wanted to come to New Orleans, but bar rooms down there, gospel songs don't go too good, and so you can't play too much gospel in a bar room. One or two songs is all right, but you get playing too much gospel, it'd be like the reason why Ricky Skaggs could never get nowhere. Later on, after he made a few hits, he wanted to preach to the people in bluegrass festivals or country music festivals, mainly country music festivals, and people didn't like that, and they quit coming.
Well, you know, I really like that you made me some tapes of some of those old firehouses of Ralph Stanley and Keith Whitley and Ricky Skaggs is on the show. They're doing some comedy and stuff, and they sound really great.
Yeah, well, Ricky Skaggs, he left Ralph, and he was going to go country. And one of them fellers thought that they could go country, and Ricky finally did. And Ricky started off on his own. He left Stanley, and Keith stayed with him. And so Keith was #1 lead singer for Stanley there for about, I'd say, 8 years. And the first time I met Keith Whitley and Ricky Skaggs, they was both 16 years old. And I met them up at Ralph Stanley's Bluegrass Festival up in Clintwood, Virginia. And so that's the first time that I had met him. But he played a show in Sandy Hook, Kentucky. And they was running late for the show, Ralph and his band was. And they were driving a motor home, and I think they had a water pump or something went out on it, and they was running about an hour late, and they come up to the schoolhouse where they was going to play, and before they opened the door, Ralph said, I stood there for just a minute, said they was playing our songs in there on record, and said I opened the door, and I seen Ricky Skaggs and Keith Whitley up there playing, and they had Sammy Adkins there, he was playing, and this Moore boy, Buddy Moore, he's named Hook and Beans, and he was playing there, and Ralph said, my mouth flew wide open, said I hired him that night.
Well, he never regretted that, did he?
No, that was one of the great things about Stanley. Helped a lot of bluegrass musicians climb to the top. And Keith Whitley, Ricky Skaggs, you name them, they put them up there. Of course, them boys was raised poor, just as poor as dirt. And they recorded for Sterling Recording Studio out of Bristol for about 8 years, and they recorded on a Sterling label.
Is that the same label Hank Williams recorded on in
He
his early
recorded
days?
on his early years with Sterling. And the guy from Sterling, and I'd say Hank Williams, didn't make no money either. In other words, when Ralph and Carter Stanley recorded on Sterling, they never got a nickel off of the records. All they got was the build up of the shows where people had heard them, and Sterling put it on a lot of radio stations, and they didn't make one royalty off of no song as long as it was on Sterling.
Mercy, I remembered that label. It had kind of some of those had some 78s. It was like a silver.
They
looking
was
color.
78s. That's what it was. Had a silver and black. That's what it was.
Hey, Slick, we're going to take a break here and come back on the next one. We're going to talk about Hank Williams' last day right here, here in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Yeah.
Thanks for talking to me. This is Leonard Slick Southerland and Ross Southerland signing off.